Restoration Shaman is all about using the elements and the power of water to heal our allies. I'm going to show you everything you need to know here, while also keeping it very beginner friendly and accessible. We're going to start off with the stats and the stat priority. Looking at here, then we've got our priority stat, which is intellect. The more intellect we have, the more power and more healing our spells are going to do. This basically is going to come from a higher and higher eye level of gear. Now, I will put the stat priority on the screen here for you. That is a general guide to which stats you should be looking for on gear, but always prioritize a higher eye level and therefore more intellect, and you're going to be absolutely fine. So we have the main secondary stats then after our main stat, which is intellect. We have versatility. This is actually going to increase our damage done and increase our healing done, while also slightly reducing our damage taken. It's a really great all-around stat. Haste is going to increase our attack speed and spell casting speed. So like if we're casting this healing wave here, it's going to be cast a lot quicker if we have a lot more haste. Then we have mastery, and for us restoration shamans, this is going to increase the healing from our spells by up to X amount, based on the current health of our target, where lower health targets are healed for more. Critical strike means we've got a chance for extra effectiveness on attacks and heals. Quickly looking at the tier set that we're getting in Season 1 for The War Within, we are getting the Waves of the Forgotten Reservoir. If you're still new to Restoration Shaman, don't worry, I'm going to be explaining in more detail what these spells do later on in the video. But the set piece this season means that Tidal Waves increases the healing of affected spells, and Tidal Waves is more effective and reduces the mana cost of affected spells. And that is what our rotation is going to be formed around in this guide. Again, if you are a beginner, don't worry too much if you don't understand that. We're going to be going through it all shortly. So now we're going to go through the utilities and sort of defensives, etc., that you can use as a shaman in, Season 1, Patch 11 of The War Within. Now, the ones I am showing you here, these are the most important utilities. That's not to say that it's a comprehensive list. There are more to use. These are the ones you'll be using the most and are most important, however. So what I would suggest that if you're a beginner or veteran alike, then you should just go through your spellbook and the left side of your talent tree, the shaman class talents, once you're really comfortable with your rotation, etc., and just see what else you have available. But generally, these ones are the main ones that you need to know about. So let's jump into it. First up on the left, we've got Thunderstorm. Call down a bolt of lightning, as you can see here, causing a thunderstorm. It's going to deal an amount of damage to everyone in a 10-yard radius. What the main thing it's going to do, though, is not the damage, but it's actually going to knock them away from you and then also slow them by 50%, and you can use it while stunned. So a great way at doing a bit of damage, knocking your enemies back and then slowing them down and getting them away from you. Water walking here, you can put on you or any allies, and quite simply, you can then walk on water, but damage will cancel that effect. This could be really useful whenever really you need to walk on water, which could be in raids, dungeons, or the open world, or battlegrounds. It really could be in any situation here. Wind shear, this is a really, really important one on a 12-second cooldown. This is your interrupt or kick. If you hear someone saying the word kick, that just means interrupt. It's how we're going to interrupt our enemies' spellcasting. Literally, like imagine I'm casting Lightning Bolt, I could interrupt that and the spell would not go off. It's interrupted. And I really want to hit home here how important using this is a lot in PvP, in Mythic Plus, sometimes in raiding. Veterans and beginners alike really overlook the importance. It can be make or break, especially in higher Mythic Plus keys, for example, whether you win or lose, to have you interrupted a certain spell. And interrupting as a group is so important. Hexing is another really interesting one. You're going to transform the victim into a frog and incapacitate them for an entire minute, but it does only work on beasts and humanoids. One of my favourite spells in the whole game, Ghost Wolf. We can use it without a cooldown, whenever the hell we like, indoors and outdoors. We can turn into a Ghost Wolf, as you can see here. And this is going to increase our movement speed by a whopping 40%. You can use this on boss fights, in combat, inside. You know, you can use this in so many situations to speed up getting out of something or getting from A to B in a certain boss fight or just getting from A to B after a wipe. There are so many useful things for this, and it is honestly absolutely amazing. On the right then, we've got Nature Swiftness on a 1-minute cooldown. The next healing or damaging nature spell you cast is instant cast and costs no mana. So if I cost like my lightning bolt, you can see it's instant rather than having to actually cast the entire spell like we have here. Then we've got a big defensive Earth Elemental, as you can see it here. Calls for greater Earth Elemental to protect you and your allies for 1.2 minutes. While this elemental is active, and this is my favourite thing about the ability, your maximum health is increased by 15%. So you can actually use this, like if you know the boss is going to do a big, huge attack on you and it might kill you, well, we can use this Earth Elemental to actually add more to our health, therefore lessening the chance that will happen. We've got Spirit Walk here, again on a 1-minute cooldown, removing all movement impairing effects and increasing your movement speed by 60% for 8 seconds. Another great cooldown there. If something, you know, sticks us in the mud, if you will, we can get out and then really speed up. And lastly, this is completely new to the War Within for Shamans, we get Sky Fury. Harness the Fury of the Windlord to grant a target ally 2% mastery, the stat that we spoke about earlier, and empower their auto attacks to have a 20% chance to instantly strike again for an hour. If the target is in your party or raid, it will do it to everyone. This is a new group and raid-wide buff that we now get as Shamans, which is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm so glad they've added this in. The last one I want to talk about, which you may be aware of, is Bloodlust, increasing the haste of all party and raid members by 30% for 40 seconds. And this is on a 10-minute cooldown, and you can see here, like, my lightning bolts are now a lot faster. Everything is going to be a lot faster. This is generally known as the biggest cooldown in the game. If you're a beginner, you may not be aware of it. Shamans have it, evokers have it, hunters have it, mages have it, and you will all share that cooldown. If one of you uses it, the others will be on cooldown as well. So you're generally going to use this when your raid leader or group leader tells you, or just ask them, when would you like me to use it? Because this is like the biggest cooldown that literally is in the game. It is huge, absolutely huge. And that is all of the main utilities and kind of defensives I think you need to be aware of in the War Within as a shaman. Again, do look through the spell book when you are, you know, more familiar with the spec. You know, we've got a lot of totems that we can use, like Windrush Totem's a good one. Let me just show you that one. You know, we've got loads of totems, like we can place this one, and when you walk through it, you know, you're partying, you are all sped up. There's things like Spirit Walker's Grace, Totemic Recall, Tremor Totem, Stone Bulwark Totem. The list literally goes on and on and on. There's so many of them, but I don't want to overwhelm you in this. And now for the exciting bit. What abilities, etc., are we going to use in the rotation and priority list in PvP for the War Within? So first things first, before the gates open, we are going to want to use our Earth Shield. This is going to increase healing on whoever you put it on by 20% and also heal them when they take damage. You can put this on you and also somebody else at the same time. And on yourself, you can also put on Water Shield at the same time, helping with some mana regeneration. Something new in the War Within is actually Sky Fury, which we can obviously now put on us and all of our allies as well. And you want to make sure you get these few things up before any combat starts. Then looking at the actual heals we're mainly going to be using, we have Unleash Life. When I use this, you're going to see that there's an ancestor here. They actually will copy your heals, and we'll be talking more about that in the hero talents that we'll be looking at. After that, we have Healing Surge, which can really easily do some large single target healing, and a more efficient version is Healing Wave. For passive healing, we can use the Healing Stream Totem. As you can see here, I could just put them on the ground and they will just passively heal. And then we have Riptide. That is going to generate something called Tidal Waves. The cast time of your next healing wave or chain heal is reduced, and the critical chance effect of your next healing surge is increased. So when we use Riptide, it's also actually going to heal our allies, but it actually is going to improve things like our healing surge and healing wave, making them even better than they were before. Lastly, we have Primordial Wave, blast a target, healing them. Your next healing wave will also hit all targets affected by your Riptide for 40% of normal healing. So if I heal someone and they've got a Riptide on them, that's also going to heal the person with Riptide. We've got a lot of utilities up our sleeve as a Restoration Shaman. We have Ancestral Swiftness. Your next healing or damaging spell is instant and costs no mana and deals more healing. And this is also going to call an ancestor to our side. We have Ancestral Guidance. For the next 10 seconds, some of our healing done is converted into healing on nearby party and raid members, and that can get out some extra healing and damage as well. Bloodlust, of course, increasing our haste massively, but I want to let you know that this does last for 40 seconds. So even though it's a large cooldown, plan with your teammates when you're going to be doing your burst damage, etc., and work together so that you can incorporate Bloodlust into that period and, absolutely throttle your enemies. We've got Healing Tide Totem, summoning a totem, just pulsing out healing. We've got Mana Tide Totem, increasing mana regen massively. Spirit Link Totem, this is going to redistribute everyone's health within it. So if you go really low, but someone else has a lot of health, it's going to kind of redistribute out the health to help keep everyone alive. And then if you're really in a spot of trouble, we can use Ascendance. Transforming into a Water Ascendant, duplicating all healing you deal effectively for 15 seconds, and immediately healing for a large amount as well. And again, any Ascendance healing that it does do will be distributed around to your allies. We've got a lot of utilities and cooldowns, and totems as a Restoration Shaman. We've got Wind Shear, interrupting our enemy spellcasting. Greater Purge purges the enemy target of 2 beneficial magical effects, which is only on a 12-second cooldown as well. We've got Stone Bulwark Totem, granting the caster a shield, absorbing a hell of a lot of damage. Tremor Totem, removing any fear, charm, and sleep effects from party and raid members passively. A great way of offsetting those effects as well. And the really good thing about these totems is that they're all instant cast. You can just put them down and then passively have the effect happening so that you can get on with actually healing your allies. And then we have the last one, Earthen Wall Totem. Summon a totem at a target location with a lot of health and damage from each attack against allies is actually going to get redirected to the totem instead. It's going to slowly sort of die off, if you will. Then we've got Earth Grab Totem. Oh, that should be there. As you can see here, it's going to basically cast Entangling Roots, summons a totem, and it's going to pulse, entangling everyone in roots and reduce their movement speed as well. Then we've got Hex, where we can transform them into a frog for a minute. We've got Thunderstorm, calling down a bolt of lightning, dealing nature damage to all enemies, and again, removing their movement speed by 50% for 5 seconds. Astral Shift, quite simply reducing how much damage you take. And lastly, a really good movement speed one you can use is Ghost Wolf, and you can use this whenever the hell you like. So as you can see here, we have got a hell of a lot of utility at our disposal. And really the healing spells we're going to be using here for PvP are actually quite straightforward and simple. Now we have gone into the Farseer talents here, and I'm going to be taking you through this fully now. So for this build, we are going into the Farseer hero talents. It's actually all about summoning the ancestors to help you in combat. And I really do like this as a Restoration Shaman. So we're starting off with the Keystone talent, which is Call of the Ancients. Benefiting from Undulation, calls an ancestor to your side for 6 seconds. Casting Unleash Life, calls one to your side for 12 seconds. And whenever you cast a healing or damaging spell, the ancestor will cast a similar spell, which is a really lovely passive effect. Oh, how kind of them. And going down the left side, I've gone for Ancient Fellowship, where ancestors have a 20% chance to call another when they expire. So let's say after the 12 seconds it expires, well, it's got a 1 in 5 chance of actually then calling another one for 6 seconds. When an ancestor is called, they reduce the cooldown of Riptide. Lovely. I love to get more Riptides out. Earthen Communion I go for on the next one. Earth Shield has an additional 3 charges and heals you for more. Lovely jubbly. On this one, you can have the ancestors last an additional amount of time. I don't like to go for that one. I like to go for Routine Communion. Riptide has a 15% chance to call an ancestor to your side for 6 seconds. And I think there, where we're using different spells, we've got a higher chance of getting more ancestors out. Primordial capacity increases your maximum mana, and tidal waves can now stack up to 4 times, which I love. Maelstrom supremacy increases the healing done by a lot of your healing. Cool. Elemental reverb. Lava burst gains an additional charge and deals more damage. We're not really going to be using that. Riptide gains an additional charge and heals more. Fantastic. We love more Riptide healing. Using spells of a cast time increases the duration of Spirit Walker's Grace and Spirit Walker's Aegis by a second, up to a maximum of 4 seconds. A bit of a utility one there, pretty much. I'm not sure if I actually went through Spirit Walker's Grace earlier. So I'll just put a temporary talent tree to show you. Calls upon the guidance of the spirits for 15 seconds, permitting movement while casting shaman spells. Castable while casting. So it's just a really fantastic movement speed ability there, and that is what this is enhancing. I don't think I told you it before. Well, if I did, then boo-hoo, I guess. And then Ancestral Guidance here for the next 10 seconds, 10% of your healing done, and 25% of your damage done is converted to healing on nearby allies. Then we've got Final Calling. When an ancestor expires, they cast Hydro Bubble on a nearby injured ally. What does the Hydro Bubble do? Well, it surrounds your target in a protective water bubble. The shield absorbs loads of incoming damage, but the absorb amount decays fully over its duration. I love this. It's playing into the Ancestor fantasy. God, that sounds a bit... oh, my lord. And it's also playing into the, obviously, water healing that shamans do. We don't really have any absorbs, so I really, 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 really love this one. So it's basically going to cast an absorb shield on your ally when any ancestors expire. Lastly, we have Ancestral Swiftness. Your next healing or damaging spell is instant, costs no mana, and deals 10% increased damage and healing. If you know Nature's Swiftness, which of course we do, it is replaced by Ancestral Swiftness and causes Ancestral Swiftness to call an ancestor to your side. So we can get an instant spell out on cooldown, on a pretty quick cooldown, and also now call an ancestor when we do it. I am obsessed with this hero talent tree. I think it is so much better than other classes, and I do every single spec. Check them out on my channel if you haven't. Honestly, my favorite healer is usually Restoration Druid, and I really actually my main Resto Shaman just because of how good Farseer is, and I love it. But anyway, that is Farseer. So you've got, some protective bubbles there. It's enhancing some utility, adding healing, and mainly adding in ancestors who are going to reciprocate our healing on our allies. Looking at the consumables we're going to be using in the War Within Season 1 in patch 11.0, a few things have changed. The vault, obviously, what we get out of it is changing, including how we get sockets on our gear. So for extra sockets from your weekly vault, we're using Nerubian gem weavers now on the helm, wrist, and belt. And the way we actually socket our jewelry is changing. Before you could have 3 sockets on a neck. Now you can add 2 on a neck, or have 2 on a neck, should I say, 2 on a ring and 2 on your other ring. So for the actual enchants, we're going with Winged Grace on the cloak. It's giving you avoidance and it's reducing full damage taken. Crystalline Radiance on the chest is primary stat. Avoidance again on the wrist. Sunset Spellthread on the legs, which increases intellect and stamina. Scout's March on the boots is for speed. And then we're adding haste on both of our rings. And then for the weapon, it's Authority of Radiant Power. This is generally more geared towards the Mythic Plus side of things, for the weapon specifically. When you do damage, you have a chance to smite your enemy for a load of damage and increase your primary stat. If you're in raiding, what I would recommend on your weapon, the rest of them are still the same, although I would say maybe crit enchants on your rings, but again, it depends on your stat priorities and what you're going for. But for the weapon, it would be the Authority of Fiery Resolve, where you have a chance when healing to do healing to allies, but also doing fire damage to enemies as well. Then looking at the consumables, we have the Flask of Tempered Swiftness, which gives haste. Feast of the Divine Day is primary stat. Mana Potion, of course. Potion Bomb of Recovery, you can basically throw at your enemies and it's going to heal them. Healing Potion, obviously. Earth Living Weapon is what I spoke about as a shaman before. But if you don't play with Earth Living, then we can use the Algari Mana Oil. You can't have both of them. We are generally going with Earth Living Weapon as a shaman. Crystallized Augment rune is going to give you more intellect as well if you are using augment runes. My apologies there. And the culminating blasphemite is really interesting. Basically, it's going to give you intellect, and it's also going to up your effect of critical strikes by 0.15% per coloured gem. In other words, if we have an emerald, a ruby, an onyx, and a sapphire, it's going to give us 0.60% increased critical effect. Whereas if we had 4 rubies, it would only give us 0.15. If we had 2 rubies and 2 onyx, so 2 different types, then we get 0.30%. And therefore, you want to have 4 different coloured gems in your gear. Where deadly emeralds are going to be the one, if you've got more than 4 sockets, that you are going to go for as a kind of default. But do try and fill out those first 4 sockets of different colours first and foremost. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was really useful for you in The War Within Season 1, whether it was for Mythic Plus or raiding. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. My Patreon is in the description below, and that is where you can find my LVI profiles, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'm putting together a huge macro list for every single spec that's going to be really useful for you in The War Within as well. I am doing all classes and specs for The War Within, so if you are new to the channel, then please do click this playlist here to check out what else I have, which is all of them. There will also be PvP guides on this channel as well for War Within Season 1, so make sure to look out for that. This here is the UI that I was referring to. As you can see, we've got target frames, etc., left and right, and raid frames go in the middle here, and then weak auras in the middle with an action bar down here. Chat is behind where my camera is. Minimap and details, etc., are here on the right. All of the plater profiles, the voodoo, the LVY, etc., details profile has all been made by me. And again, you can get this on my Patreon should you like it.